All right. Greetings, everyone, and a very warm welcome to all of you for joining this webinar today on the topic of the changing face of EdTech industry in today's world. We had around 200 registrations for this webinar from across the world, and we really appreciate you all for making time today to attend this webinar, and I'm sure we'll make it worth your time. A few years back, I mean, if you would have asked someone what is EdTech, yes, a lot of people knew about EdTech, but they were probably associated with EdTech or they were, learning something online. But what happened during the pandemic was that suddenly everyone on the face of this earth was exposed to online learning and EdTech. Everyone's parents and grandparents now know what exactly EdTech is and what online learning is. That's the extent we have today and the exposure we have today to this space. And COVID has just accelerated that. In this webinar, we'll explore some key trends that are shaping the EdTech industry and how institutions and many EdTech companies are addressing the challenges that they are faced with. We will look at 4 different perspectives from our panelists today, each perspective coming from a very different vantage point in the EdTech space. And how we are going to do that, you'll see, but let's start with a quick introduction. And I can start with myself. I'm Nachiket. I head the higher education and workforce business at LearningMate. At LearningMate and Straive, we are committed to improving student outcomes through leveraging digital transformation, through cloud learning design, and support services that we offer to all our customers. It's been a privilege to be associated with such wonderful customers over the last 20-25 years that we have been together as a company. I'm very excited to share some of these experiences with you. I will now ask Eric from Chegg to give a quick introduction.
Thanks, Nachiket. And hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Eric Benuevo, and I'm the VP of Content here at Chegg. I oversee essentially all of Chegg's content development and operations activities across the globe. For those who have been following Chegg through the years, a company that was founded essentially at the end of the 2000s and IPO'd as probably one of the first EdTech unicorns in 2013. We started out very much as a textbook solutions, a textbook rental and textbook purchasing site, and have evolved through the years, which I'll explain a little bit later, but very much excited to share what Chegg has been doing and how we see the educational landscape changing.
Thanks, Eric. Samit, over to you.
Hey, thanks, Nachiket, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. I know, a lot of people have joined in from different parts of the world. I'm Samit Shetty. I'm the Technical Solution Manager with the Media and Entertainment Division of Autodesk. I'm going to talk a lot about Autodesk in the next coming 1 hour, but I am a visual effects artist myself. I used to work in production in the past for one complete decade, and then from the past 12 years, I've been working with Autodesk as a M&E tech specialist, managing India and SAARC. Thank you.
Thanks, Samit. Eric from Southern New Hampshire University.
Hi there, thanks, Nachiket. I'm Eric Regnell. I'm the Director of Learning Experience Engineering in the Office of Product and Program Innovation at SNHU, which is a lot of words, but basically it means that my remit is sort of to look at some of the new things that are going on in education and try to figure out what we can do as a university to help the learner of 2030.
Thanks, Eric. Let me start by setting some background and context for our discussion today. We will have each of our panelists share their views on what changes and challenges they are seeing in their own EdTech space. How are they adapting to those, and how are they innovating in these challenging times? This will be followed up with some Q&A. Please submit your questions in the Q&A box, and we will pick them along as we go. We also have some poll questions in between the sessions and also towards the end, and we look forward to your participation in that. And the webinar is being recorded, and it will be shared with the participants after we complete this webinar. So maybe time for our first poll question. and I'm assuming it should be on your screen soon. We are talking about digital transformation today, and everyone knows that there is some digital transformation happening. But we would really like to know from our audience if this digital transformation is really being accelerated in your institution or organization. I think the acceleration is a key word. And most of that is because of COVID and the pandemic that we have seen in the last 1.5 years. Also, there's another question which asks, how many EdTech unicorns do we have today? And by unicorn, we mean a company which has valuation of more than $1 billion in the EdTech space. And how many do you think exist today? So these are two questions. We'll give a few more seconds for people to respond to those, and we should have some answers being displayed. Unicorn was not such a buzzword when it came to education technology, because we know education is one of the last few industries that is adopting technology. It's definitely way behind some other industries that we see, like finance or shopping or e-commerce. So yeah, I mean, it's interesting to see how things have been changing in the last few years. All right, so I think the verdict is out there. We see everyone really talking about acceleration in digital transformation in their organization today, and which is what the focus of this webinar is going to be. Interestingly, a lot of people think there are 10 to 20 EdTech unicorns as of today. The actual answer is 35 to 45. They're closer to 45. And it's been amazing to see the amount of innovation that's happening in this space, especially in the last 1.5 years, with new products, new technologies coming and creating an impact. So with that, let's move on with our webinar. We have seen that digital transformation is taking place today and at a great speed. But even before COVID, we were seeing a fair bit of shift happening to online education. This was demonstrated by growth in enrollments in universities like Southern New Hampshire University. There was a surge in growth of non-traditional students, as we call them. Also, the significance of workforce education in reskilling, upskilling. And we also saw huge growth of OPM companies trying to bring online education to traditional universities. And during the pandemic, we basically saw all of these changes being accelerated at a speed we have never seen before. Some of the statistics that you have on the screen here, I mean, they are mind-blowing. We expect the education learning business, especially in the digital space, to be closer to $1 trillion by 2026, which initial estimates was that it will reach that number by 2030. What we saw in the last 1.5 years was 1.6 billion students across the world pushed into online learning. And believe me, many of them are going to stay and learn online. We've also seen that there is huge amount of investment happening in the EdTech space, which is growing at 37% CAGR year on year. However, with all of this acceleration that you see in digital transformation, there are some real challenges that EdTech space is facing today. And as of June 2020, institutions offering bachelor's degrees saw a 6 to 8% decline in enrollments for fall 2020. The traditional enrollments are declining, at least here in the US. In the US, people collectively hold trillions of dollars in student debt. Effectiveness of education in general, therefore, and online learning many times is being questioned. How can we reduce the cost of building quality content? How can we make content more personalized, more engaging, and have a better ROI for the students? Many employers that have been surveyed have mentioned about skill gaps. There are 36 million Americans in the workforce who have some college but no degree. So as we can see, there are some real challenges that we are facing today. So in this panel, we are going to bring together 4 different views of some of these challenges. And while we will today find out how each of these organizations is addressing the challenges and opportunities that are in front of them, there is a common theme that binds everyone's mission here. That is ensuring student success at scale. Because at the heart of everything is student success, student outcomes, student engagement, working towards bettering that through services and technologies and products that we come up with. We'll see LearningMate, Chegg, Autodesk, and SNHU providing each of their different viewpoints here. To begin with, let me talk a little about how we are solving these problems at LearningMate and Straive. As I said before, at the heart of what we do is learning experience, student engagement, and student success. LearningMate and Straive have a mission to improve this through digital transformation at scale and quality. And we use a two-pronged approach to do that. What we have seen and through our experiences of how things are shaping, online learning is a combination of strong learning design and technology. And therefore, we address this challenge through two strategies. One is the content modernization, and the other is the technology and workflow modernization. As we all know, technology is rapidly changing. Every year we come up with new technologies and new ways of doing things. And content experience and the way content is delivered has to catch up with that kind of a technology, which is more digital first, which is AI driven, ML driven. It is data driven, it is cloud based, and it is plug and play. Now, content on the other end, which is the base through which learning experiences are provided, those experiences are changing. Today, learning is really modular. It is lifelong and it is digital. Experiences are more personalized. Credentials are stackable. With all of that happening, you really need to think of how content today is designed, how it is created, how it is stored and managed, and how it is delivered. And we at LearningMate and Straive are trying to address some of those big challenges of operational efficiencies in managing digital content, improving student outcomes through better experience and engagement, and enabling speed to market for our customers. Now, our research and design is always focused on how we make content more flexible, more agile, and more reusable in this today's modern world. As we move along and get views from other panelists, I'm happy to answer any questions as you have as we progress. But let's quickly go through another quick poll question. And this is something which everyone today is challenged with, right? When you talk of online education, you are thinking whether this is a problem of good content available, is the content not engaging enough? I'm spending a lot of money to build that content. There is a lack of tools and technologies to effectively design that content. There are many challenges. It would be a good exercise to know from this audience what they feel are some of those challenges that they are facing today when it comes to online education. And as a community, I think it's we are all in this to improve that and understand what those challenges are. In fact, the other day I was talking to someone and they said that when last year, in a year and a half, 1.6 billion students were exposed to online learning, not everyone enjoyed that experience. But what happened in the process was a huge amount of feedback and data was generated as to what are those bottlenecks, what are those challenges. And that is a rich data for the EdTech industry today to improve on. We had never got any exposure to this kind of data and experience feedback from the audience. Looking at the answers, well, of course, all of the above, all of those are real challenges. We have some great panelists today who actually are dealing with these challenges on a day-to-day basis, whether it is engaging personalized content or lack of those tools, technologies. And I'm sure all of you are eager to know what they have to say. But this is exactly what we are seeing in the industry. So this audience is representing that in its true sense. So I'll first move to Eric from Chegg. You all know Chegg, and Chegg is one of the largest EdTech companies today with a huge valuation, which I'm sure Eric is happy about. But they have been in this business for a long time. Student success is at the core of their mission. But Chegg has also been doing a lot more than just textbook rentals or solutions that they provide. And let's see, Eric, if you could tell us more about Chegg, its history, and how it has really evolved over the last few years, so that our audience gets to understand you better.
Absolutely, Nachiket. And I'd love to also frame that in the context of what you mentioned at the start of this, which is how this has evolved also in a post-COVID world. And as you mentioned, and for folks who may not be familiar with Chegg, when we started out as a textbook rental company, we very quickly realized that the use case, and as Nachiket said, the problem that we needed to solve for students, while that was a big problem that we helped solve, that wasn't enough. And so we very, very quickly then pivoted to digital content and digital solutions, first starting with homework help content. And as the years progressed from 2011, and I wish I could really kind of speak to the scale of which this growth has really taken place since 2011, really for the last 10 years. Pre-COVID, we were already in a fairly fast growth path, helped by a lot of what we talked about at the beginning here, which is a lot of the pain points around access to education, cost of education are all very real. And so we've been a part of trying to solve that problem for a really long time. But also because as the years have progressed, we've realized that one content modality and one way in which we serve a use case may not necessarily be enough. The way in which students learn, obviously, is not a singular path. And to assume that students essentially consume content and gain self-mastery from content in a one-dimensional world is it isn't inclusionary. Everyone has differences of some kind, especially in the learning capacity. And so we began to evolve, well, how might we actually improve comprehension, self-mastery, memorization, and solve some of these specific use cases through content? And through the homework help content that we created, we started evolving into other forms of content, everything from writing tools help, math help, flashcards, tutoring help. But what we've also begun to realize over the last couple of years is that while those modalities helped us expand, they're still very much text-based content modalities. Over the last few years, we've very much been experimenting. For those who've been following Chegg, we've started to explore into other dynamic forms of content, which actually pulls us into an unknown territory, which I'm sure a lot of companies and a lot of folks on this call are also experiencing, which is if your core competency is this, and you see that there is a tangential opportunity of that, but it seems kind of far enough, how do you get there? And going from 0 to 1 might be easy enough to create a prototype, but going from 1 to 10, you might be able to brute force it. But then to go from 10 to 10,000, that's a completely different problem. So each of those steps and each of those stages are something that we've been, trying to tackle at Chegg. Exacerbating things, heading into COVID, we were already beginning to see growth in the international markets. And talking about student use cases, again, assuming that one student use case or one core audience is the same across the world isn't a fair way of thinking about it, because not only are there differences across the globe, but the way in which students learn across the globe is different, and it is evolving, especially through COVID as well. So, in COVID, we saw an explosive growth. For those who have followed, our public earnings calls, we've been in this accelerated path for quite some time, but we went from really good growth to like amazing growth in a very short amount of time. But what that manifested was, well, how the heck do we serve students at this kind of scale? Again, going from 1 to 10, we could brute force that, but from going 10 to 100,000 is something that's really, really challenging. So we've really had to explore internally and look inside what are the different ways in which we need to re-architect our processes and our technologies, but also our people. But what that's also forced us to think about is to be a little bit more creative in how we augment our development processes. Not all of it has to be in-house. Some of that can be out-house. But at the end of the day, how do we actually create this extended development capability that isn't just built off of our core capabilities, but how do we add all these things together? So we've really had to form a series of strategic partnerships and really lean in heavily over the last couple of years, especially through COVID, in order for us to expand at the pace that we've been at. It's been a really exciting time, and it's also been a really challenging time. At the heart of it, we hope that we've been serving the student in the right ways through all of that.
Thanks, Eric. That's very insightful. And also, as someone who is heading the content and operations, what do you see as biggest challenges today in terms of creating and scaling quality content? Because everywhere we hear about content and the cost of building that content, cost of maintaining the content, the ability of that content to engage the learners. And a lot of your services and products revolve around the ability to provide quality content to your students. What are those challenges that you're facing, which if you had a magic wand, you would want them to be addressed on day zero?
Ooh, that's a big question, Nachiket. Let me first say that quality is also a unicorn in itself. For those of us who have been building content, one, it seems like it's the never-ending, panacea that you can almost never attain. And just when you think you're there, you're not really there. An example of that is one definition of quality could be just the way that students vote by their credit cards. How they ultimately become a customer of your service is definitely an evidence of that. But right. Honestly, it's more complicated than that. And just because a student also rates something up or down, isn't also enough as well. I mean, there are so many dimensions and so many attributes of quality that we've really been trying to understand that. It's an orthogonal problem that is not just to presume it can be defined by Chegg or by ourselves isn't enough. And to assume that a student can define that by themselves isn't enough, because again, it's a job that will never be done. So we've been in this constant pursuit of trying to redefine what quality means for us. It's not just accurate or complete. It has to be all of these things. Is it relevant? Is it personalized? Is it reusable? Is it, what are all these different attributes that could ultimately be valuable, not just for Chegg, but really for the student, and how do we just make that better for our students? And I wish we had a magic wand, as you mentioned, because I wish that were that. I mean, I think that would make all of our lives super easy, but that's the job that we're all in, which is to try to figure out how do we create this kind of quality content at the scale in which we're here for. Absolutely.
I think there are multiple facets to that, and quality is just not a one-dimensional thing. But yeah, pretty exciting stuff. Thanks so much, Eric. I would now like to move to our next panelist, Samit Shetty from Autodesk. Samit, Autodesk is a company that caters to many market segments, and education, of course, is one of them. And you are in the business of design. And there's no doubt that education today really needs better designed experiences, especially when we talk of the Gen Z population that has grown with these sophisticated experiences. We would love to hear your take on how your software today is enabling modern content delivery formats and how you're creating these immersive experiences for your audience. I'm sure the audience would also in this webinar like to see some samples and some interesting things. So over to you, Samit.
Thanks, Nachiket. You already mentioned about a little bit about Autodesk. I just wanted to reiterate. We are in various design businesses, be it architectural, be it manufacturing, And our small business, but very interesting business, is the media and entertainment. So we've always been an integral part of the animation, visual effects, and game industry for long. I'm like, our products have been more than 25 years old, and people have been using it for long, for entertainment purposes, be it animation, visual effects, and games. Most of our tools have won Scientech Awards, Emmy Awards for being the best tool. But yeah, these were all for entertainment purpose. All, the name itself says animation, visual effects, games is completely for entertainment. But slowly we started seeing a wide adoption of all these tools in the e-learning and e-commerce as well. Of course, e-commerce is a different ball game, but yes, during pandemic, the e-commerce also gained a big momentum. But e-learning was growing uh, rapidly from the past few years. But yes, the last 2 years was a boom, I could say. Now, uh, e-learning, as we all know, are into different formats and different requirements, be it military simulations, be it science, be it medical, be it education, be in everywhere, even in corporates. We have learning, we have some courses which we need to do, and we need content for that. So I'm just going to make it more simplified. For e-learning, we have two separate sections. Like, one vertical is service, like, the educational material is what we call it as. And the other one is, how do you convert those educational material into visual content, right? So Autodesk plays a very important role in the content creation side, where we feel that, hey, the need of converting the textbooks or the reading materials into a very, very nice visual content is more appealing, like, because not all kids are the same. Not everyone would enjoy reading, right? There are some who would like to view it, and view it in a cinematic way, or view it in a gamified way. Like, learning in a gamified way is what e-learning industry is more about. That this is what I've heard from a lot of e-learning players. So as I said, we are more into the content creation space. We have tools which was quite widely used in the animation and visual effects space, is now being adapted by the learning industry. I mean, it's nothing new for Autodesk, because for Autodesk, these kind of contents were already being used in the other industry. But for an e-learning industry, it is something new, right? So we have mediums of content delivery, which is 2D, which is 3D, 2D, 3D, live action, a mix of that, and AR, VR, and all, which is again picking up big time in various industries. So all these things are the medium of delivery now, right? So what are the challenges which most of the e-learning companies are facing? Like, these are the things which we try to address a lot, being a technology company. And these challenges, I would say, were already addressed beforehand, because the challenges is not for e-learning companies only. The challenges is for content creation, and content creation, as I said, was already there in the industry for long, right? So competition, because there are tons and tons of content coming up. There is lack of creative content, and there are too many tools in the industry. So most of the EdTech companies get confused at which tool they should be using to make the content look good, or do it on time, or meet the ROI. So there are a lot of various factors which had to be addressed, but this gets addressed already because of various aspects. Like, we've been telling the industry that, hey, 3D is good, because if you move to 3D, there are various advantages. Okay, it's not mandate that every content has to be 3D, but there are certain advantages of certain things when you want to go close to the object, when you want to make the object look photorealistic, and so on. And of course, the motion communication in 3D animation is greater. The visual appeal in 3D animation is much more better. And of course, the assets which you create once can be reused in various other tutorials, is something which is very useful when it comes to 3D, right? So these are the advantages. So what do we offer is in the content creation spaces, we have enough tools. As I said, we have been there in the industry for a long time, and we have been developing these tools to create fantastic imageries for which Hollywood films, Bollywood films, all the industries have won awards for creating, photorealistic imageries, which we could not even believe, right? Now, what is needed when we already have everything? What is needed is make the tools more simplified so that artists do not have to suffer or struggle creating those content, right? Better tools, faster tools, beautiful environment, real time. Like, industry is moving towards real time now. Everyone wants real time. Okay, the definition of real time could be different. It's different. It's not like, you hit the button and everything, it's like a magic wand. Of course, we are moving towards creating a magic wand, but yes, real time is the need of the industry today, and of course faster collaboration. So these are things which we thought about. And also, like, the more you wait for a process to happen, it kills your creativity, because the artist will lose patience, and then you don't have more patience to work further. And okay, a simple example is, I don't know how many of the attendees today have a 3D knowledge, but when it comes to 3D animation, where you have those characters jumping and dancing or talking, even like, in e-learning contents, these animations needs to be, to see in real time whether it's playing in real time or no, because the viewport does not show you real time output. Hence, the statistic was done saying that every artist spends 2 minutes of his time creating a play blast after 5 minutes of his actual job. Like, he does some animation and 2 minutes he's just creating a video, which is non-creative task. He's just sitting idle and waiting for the system to create a video, which means per day he's almost wasting 2.5 hours. And 2.5 hours per day of an artist doing nothing and just waiting is too much, right? So why was this needed is because animators had to see a play blast. Without that, they could not judge the speed of animation. Scrubbing would not give the actual performance, and there was nothing like a magic wand which would show you the magic, right? So it was necessary that our tool Maya had to be fast, so that we hit the play button and it does the magic. So if you see, a previous version of Maya was playing 8 frames per second, and later on we made it play real time. That is 24 frames per second. That means there is no need of an artist to create a play blast anymore. He's saving that 2.5 hours per day, which he can spend his time on more creative iterations, or at least go home and rest and come back fresh the next day, right? Faster tools, like, opening of files would take ages earlier, like in the past, but now it's like just click of the button. Even the file size are heavier, it just picks up. How do we do is we have forums, open forums for people, for artists. They can just put a note that, hey, this would be useful, would you like to work on this? And if there are more votes to it, we would definitely like to take that as the first option. Beautiful environment, which means the viewport will give you a render quality output. You don't have to hit the render button again and again to see the output. Only you do this job when you have to actually see the final result. So most of the time is being saved by a look and development artist doing the lighting and stuff on the viewport itself, where he can see almost everything, right? And faster modeling, like if you see on the right hand side of the image, there are standard primitives of spheres, rectangles, and all placed to create an object, which kids used to do it in their first lesson of 3D. But we use the same technology to convert those into a character, which saves a lot of time, right? So using tools like retopology, Boolean, photogrammetry like recap, and so on, these things have become much more easier and faster. Also, when I said animation is a tedious task when you have to do keyframe animation. So we incorporated Rococo motion library inside Maya, where any model, you can rig it in a click of a button. You can see this character is rigged here. Rococo is a AAA game library where it has tons of motion capture data, which is now a part of Maya. So even a simplest motion like walking, running, or jumping, you can just import them. We have tons of library inside that. You can select the one which you like. And once you import it inside Maya, all you need to do is, for example, this motion. To create this motion, an artist would spend more than a day, right? But when you import this and apply this motion to the model which has already been done inside Maya, or maybe use a default model, something like that. When you assign this, you can see the rig is already there. All you need to do is click a button and say assign this to the model, and your character starts jumping that way. All of these would have taken just not more than 2 minutes, which an artist would have spent a day to do it, which is a huge time saver, right? So all these technologies, including live action with graphics. So we have tools which can do it fantastic when you shoot against green screen, blue screen, and then get your graphics inside. Of course, collaboration is very important, because now, not now, even before, the industry used to work in different facilities, different time zones, and so on. And of course, now during pandemic, every house has become a facility because everyone is working from home. So how do we communicate? If the communication is a problem, then we're definitely going to spend a lot of time talking to each other and making sure that the things are going fine. So we have tools like Shotgun, which is now rebranded as ShotGrid, which is a production management tool where you can use for scheduling, managing tasks, assigning jobs, best review tools, and communicate between everyone, right from top hierarchy to the bottom hierarchy. So these are things which we have incorporated so that you don't have to really depend on multiple tools from the industry. And we have all the bundle which can do wonders, and every you can say every single product will talk to each other. So the whole idea was to make sure that you deliver jobs quickly, because content creation, again, is like, in EdTech, there are too many contents. It's not like a movie which just has a 1.5 hours of content. If you have tons and tons of content which needs to be converted, of course, photorealism, quality, speed, everything matters. So these are the things which we have helped the industry in the entertainment side. That has been adapted by the EdTech now, and I think it's helping every EdTech company who's in the content business really good, big time.
Thanks, Samit. I think that was so interesting, because a lot of people always think of 3D or immersive experiences to be very costly. And it is so heartening to see the kind of technology innovation that's happening, that's reducing the amount of time it takes to build these kind of experiences. No doubt, I mean, anyone in the education space, if you look at some of the courses that the students go through, which are fairly flat, they would love to have something like this in their courses, because it just creates a different level of understanding of the subject that they are studying. So great to know this. I'm sure there will be some questions from the audience, and we'll go through them towards the end. But I would now like to move to our next panelist, Eric Regnell from Southern New Hampshire University. Now, SNHU, for all of you, as you know, they are the pioneers when it comes to bringing quality and affordability to online higher education. SNHU has made it possible for thousands, probably millions, of working adults to fulfill their dreams of getting college degrees and enabling social upward mobility. You, Eric, play an important role in SNHU in terms of designing those experiences. The audience today would love to hear how SNHU is responding to the challenges faced with online education and then COVID in specific, and how are you enabling those different modalities through your offerings as a university today. So over to you, Eric.
Thanks, Nachiket. Yeah, so SNHU has been working for a number of years to sort of incorporate technology in new ways into higher education, online being the most obvious, if you will. But we certainly have moved forward in a lot of different ways. And so I want to ground the talk that I'm talking about today in our mission. This is the Southern New Hampshire University mission. We're looking to transform the lives of learners, and our success is defined by our learners' success. Those are kind of like the big things I want to come back to as the touch point. Because as we're moving through COVID has done nothing but really accelerate a lot of the changes that were already out there in the world that we're seeing, and really pushed people to adopt technologies that were already out there and being used, but a lot faster than had been previously thought. So in combination with our mission and our vision, we're trying to make the world a better and more just place through our work, one learner at a time. So taking that back to your question about technology, within the Office of Program and Product Information Innovation, we're looking to keep the learner at the center of everything we do. We're looking at the new things, the future-facing stuff, looking ahead to continually evolve our offerings. And we're trying to find new ways to keep the learner at the center, to really help one learner at a time by using the technologies and things that are out there for us. So what academic presentation isn't complete without some sort of quote and a citation? Looking here at the actual definition of what technology is, or a definition, this is from 1937, but I think it's going to help to ground what I'm talking about here, is that technology really just helps us to do the things we already do. It's tools, it's machines, it's communication, it's clothing, it's all these different things. So it helps us to do the things that we're already doing better. It helps us to accelerate parts of the things that we're trying to do so we can focus more on other things. So looking ahead, SNHU is really focusing on a few different things. These are the trends that I'm tracking as part of my work, developing new learning experiences for our students. We're looking at things like personalization, credentials, and interactions. These are kind of the areas that I see that technology is really going to enable us to do some different things, and to maybe actually really open up new avenues of opportunity for our students. So what am I talking about here? With personalization, right now we're looking at things like adaptive content, adaptive pathways, and tailored outcomes, flexible schedule, and flexible assessment. So like what does that all mean? We're seeing technology enabling people to look at the content that they need a lot more quickly and a lot more targeted to the things that they need. Think about the last time that you had to repair something around your house. Maybe your ceiling fan was broken. Not speaking from personal experience at all here. You go to YouTube and you find a video about how to repair a ceiling fan, and you scrub the video to like the 30-second slot you need to fix the thing. And then you go fix the motor, you rewire it, and then you're done. So you need that adaptive content. You need the content that fills the need you need right now. And we're able to get there a lot faster with things like search. So, I mean, so here we have kind of a little like flow chart here of like what we have, that how sort of personalization used to be or is right now, and what's kind of coming down the pike, if you will. So like before, it was really about flexible pace and place. That's how Southern New Hampshire University got where we are now, is we moved from the in-person model, the traditional time-bound and face-to-face model, to online education, a computer-based training. So all of a sudden, things that required a faculty member to stand in front of you, you suddenly have this ability to make that more asynchronous and to take it anywhere. I could take a class from a college here in New Hampshire. I could take it while I'm in California or Ohio or in India, any place, all over, right? So where we're seeing this now in the future is more flexible content. We're looking at adaptive content. We're looking at simulations, things like what Samit just showed us. All of these abilities to show really new pieces of content in new and exciting ways, alternative assessments too. So all the things that Eric was talking about at Chegg as well, about how you make these pieces of content that really actually respond to what learners need, rather than is just a static textbook, for example, right? And the pieces that support that textbook and support the learning. So this kind of personalization is something that we're really tracking. We're trying to figure out the best ways to incorporate into our learning experiences. Next up, we have credentials, micro-credentials. Again, what academic presentation in 2021 would be complete without mentioning micro-credentials or blockchain? I got it on there. So, we're looking at these different kinds of things. Also professional certifications, apprenticeships, open badging is a really great technology that I think is still waiting to sort of take off. But these are all ways that technology is enabling us to reevaluate exactly what kinds of credentials are needed for given uses, and the kinds of ones that have value in the workplace. And so I think looking at credentials as they used to be, we're seeing things like the working adult. You get your degrees and you have your licenses, and that was kind of where we as higher education could find new opportunities, is by engaging the working adult to get another degree, a new degree, or maybe to help support their licensing. But now as we move forward, I think we're going to see an uptick in that lifelong learner, which is more around micro-credentials, upskilling, reskilling, and still maintaining that need for degrees. But rather than, I heard it said someplace, rather than the idea of front-loading your career with a degree and then continuing onward, instead, I think we're going to see a lot more different pathways for how people get to their degrees, whether they go straight to it and then continue to support it with more professional development along the way, or whether they'd start with a professional certification and then move that into a more traditional degree pathway. I think we're going to see a lot more of that blending between work and education, and in smaller pieces, which the credentialing can really help to give milestones along the way and help people get worth out of those degrees and the credentials. And lastly, interactions. This is where we're talking about things like learner to content, learner to faculty, and automation, and learner to learner, peer interactions. This is the last area that I think we're going to see some really interesting changes as we move forward post-COVID. The pandemic really hit a huge nerve in terms of the way that people approached all of these different pieces of the learner experience. And I think we're going to see a lot of big shifts here. So before we were, again, looking at what the most recent innovations, if you will, we were really going with this kind of analog equivalence. Like we were looking at how do we replicate the face-to-face learning experience? We sent things over email. We have discussion boards, in your courses, and we work with a computer. We bring those things in. I think we're going to see more of an erosion of that dedicated learning space, and instead it's going to be starting to meld into more of our day-to-day life. Not unlike how work life has done the same sorts of things. Everyone has their work chat on their phone. Everyone checks their email from work on their phone. They bring all these different parts and pieces into their life. So I think as we move forward and we start teaching more digital natives instead of people like myself who grew up in an analog environment and slowly became a digital citizen, we're going to be looking at our learners, our traditional college-age student of 2030 is a digital native. They've grown up with the internet being a thing their entire lives. So things like video chat, obviously, the pandemic made Zoom a feature of everyday life. I think things like Slack and Reddit, I think, are going to be really interesting sorts of microcosm cases of how discussions and community actually build out through the future. Search has rewired our brains, the way that we catalog information, going back to the adaptive content piece. And finally, I think mobile phones are going to become much more of a big technology piece in all of our education. So that's kind of how I think we're going to be moving forward, going forward with technology in the education space. And that these are the pieces that SNHU and my team in particular are trying to track down and figure out what the next big thing is, and sort of run some experiments on that and figure out how to move in that direction.
Thank you so much, Eric, for wonderful insights into how SNHU is really addressing these different needs of the learners today, especially around lifelong learning. In fact, just have one question here popping up. Maybe you or Eric from Chegg can talk about it. So you both spoke about alternate credentials, and a lot of employers are also today asking for those credentials. The question is the degree no longer valid, or there is a different way to look at this, what is happening in terms of degree versus all of these alternate credentials?
Eric, do you want to take a crack first?
I'm happy to, but you can as well. Here, I can just start by saying, no, go for it. You go for it.
I was going to say, because I can start and then you can correct me. I think it's an interesting question, and one that we've already begun to see that use case these last few years. I mean, vocational schools exist not just because you need a 4-year or 2-year diploma. You come out with a credential or a certification with a specific skill. So we know that from an industry-specific use case, certifications could be a fantastic opportunity as an alternative to a 4-year degree. I think the big question is for areas and skills like computer science or accounting, which are historically disciplines that have required 4-year degrees, of that nature, what kinds of micro-certifications and what amalgamation or aggregation of those kinds of certifications could essentially supplement or create an alternative to that. I think we're beginning to see that with companies like Thinkful, which I don't mean that to be a plug, because Thinkful is actually a Chegg company as well. But we know that there have been alternate opportunities for learners to find ways to not just grow, but create careers for themselves through an alternative means. So we know it's there. I think the big question is, at the end of the day, it's a two-sided marketplace problem. It's content that has to fit both sides. It's content that has to fit that learner, but it's also content that ultimately has to fit the outcome or the matriculation use case of an employer in that case. So what are employers looking for? What content would they ultimately verify and validate and approve of to determine that this micro-credential could ultimately be an alternative? So I think there's a lot of work to figure out what that content market fit is. And as a company at Chegg, we've begun to explore that because of the learning journey. We really do want to be part of that learning to earning journey for that continuous learner. And I think it's a fantastic question, one that we are still continuing to explore, but it is a really big problem to try to figure out that content market fit. Eric?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, Eric. I think, and the other piece that I would say, and I think you hit on it there with the idea that it's a two-sided market. Employers are looking for ways to reduce the threat when they hire, if you will. I mean, it's an expensive proposition to hire someone new, right? To get a new employee onboarded and all that. If you hire someone and they're a bad hire, that's a lot of quote unquote wasted money. Now, typically what it ends up being is that you hire based on degrees, in part, not only, but in part because it's an insurance policy that this person has demonstrated they have some capability in certain ways of thinking, they have certain subject area knowledge. So you're seeing a lot of employers starting to move away from requiring degrees because they realize that what they're looking for, proof of knowing, is actually much more targeted sometimes. So I think that's one place and one reason why we're seeing a move away from that. I know that I work for a university, so I have maybe a vested interest in saying that the degree is still going to be valuable in the marketplace, but I don't think I do think it's going to be very valuable for a long time to come, and I don't think that that's going to change anytime quickly. But I think that what we're going to see is that people are going to start using micro-credentials, professional certifications, other sorts of credentials, whether they're from professional organizations or higher education or any number of things in between. I think people are going to start using those as the proof that they need to demonstrate capabilities and competencies in specific areas to be able to unlock jobs, or to be able to prove that they are able to do things to get that raise, to get that new promotion or whatever, as well as to learn those skills. I think, plenty of people go and work on a job and don't have a degree in something. I mean, they work in marketing or something like that, and they work in the marketing department for 10 years, and they come out of that. They don't have a degree in marketing, but you would not question that they know marketing, that they are a competent marketer. So being able to find alternative credentials to be able to validate that learning for them and prove, so that they can then say when they go someplace else, I have this education, I know how to do these things. That's kind of, I think, where we're seeing it move to, is just that it fits into people's lives better as well. They're smaller, not everyone has 4 years at a clip to go back and get a degree. So how can we supplement that learning along the way with the milestones that help them to make progress as they go?
Absolutely. And in fact, there's another very interesting question, not exactly same, but on similar lines. The question is, how has Surge changed learning? And with less emphasis on content retention, what is learning and how it is assessed? It's a very interesting question. In fact, I can take a stab at it and then hand off to you or Eric, Sumit, anyone. In the last 18, 20 years of being in this EdTech space and working with many publishers, universities to build content and courseware, we at LearningMate have seen this massive shift happening, which is from the rote learning and drill and practice to really meaningful, authentic assessments. And every new course or content that we design today is revolving around this, because I think the question is very relevant. Today, you can search something at the tip of your fingers, and there's no need to, factually remember each and everything. But at the same time, we are seeing employers who take students from the universities. They want people who can demonstrate analytical thinking and how you can solve problems. I think that is what is becoming more and more critical part of learning today. Learning is revolving around those scenario-based situations, simulations, putting the learners in actual scenarios so that they can demonstrate what actions they can take and what are the repercussions of those actions. So yes, there is a lot of emphasis today we see on creating this kind of content which promotes analytical thinking. I know Eric or Samit, any of you would like to add something to this because you guys are also creating these solutions for your learners.
Yeah, quickly, I just want to jump here, Nachiket. So yes, of course, like Eric already mentioned, like, you want to prepare your ceiling fan and you don't have to go through the entire process. All you have to do is just jump to that particular portion. So that's what the learning process is right now. Like, I have a 10-year-old son, and what he has been taught is engineering. I'm like, he's assembling things. He's making a robot out of, simple stuff, using electronic cables and God knows what. But at that age, I could only dream and think that I will grow up one day and start doing that, which he's right now doing it. And it's all because of content which he's searching and doing things by himself. So what if he wouldn't have found it with online, right? So that's the reason why these kind of smaller specialized contents are necessary, that every time you search and you find that piece of thing and then move forward, but don't wait for that right time to come and then you will learn. So just a quick one.
Absolutely. There's another question. Sorry, anyone wanted to add here?
I was just going to add that I think the other thing that goes along with the search piece is that and how you assess learning is that it's really becoming competency-based education is a really interesting sort of way to look at sort of that different outcome, because again, content retention is really less emphasized. Like I think of it also sometimes, the way I think of it is like if you hire an electrician and you have them come to your house to wire a new room or something like that, you don't really want that guy to go, yeah, I think that a 2-amp fuse should be fine for that. I seem to remember that's correct. That's cool. You want them to actually check it on their phone or in their book and like look it up, right? So we're shifting away from the idea of memorizing every single piece of information and relying on our own information, but rather remembering how we find the answer when we need it. So we want to move our forms of evaluation and assessment to things that are more based on the demonstration of your ability to do the thing and to find the information and to apply it, rather than simply the ability to remember that, oh, for this plug, it needs to be 2 feet away from the other plug and have a 4-amp fuse, or whatever piece of information it is.
Absolutely. I think we are
if
really
I could add to what.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead, Eric.
I was just going to add a plug to what Eric also said earlier, which is, even in the search experience and they find that point problem, what other content can actually be presented to that student and that learner at that point in time in which they could potentially practice their competency and their learning of that topic. I'm just repeating what Eric said.
All right. Yep. Thanks. We are at the top of the hour, but just one question I would like to take here. The question is, which e-learning content do you think will get more attraction from learners when everyone goes back to schools and colleges? I think that's a great question. We are not saying that all of classroom education is going to become online. That's not going to happen. There still will be a sage on the stage. But we are going to see a lot more infusion of technology and digital resources in the regular curriculum. So for example, a lot of flipped classroom kind of models where the faculty or the teacher can actually give some videos for the students to watch before they come to the classroom, more of online assessments. Those are some of the things that we will see more and more infused in the regular curriculum. Anything that can make the learner journey more engaging is what is going to happen when it comes to infusion of technology. Eric, Samit, anyone wants to add anything before we close this?
Maybe I'll echo what Samit said. Yeah, and I'll echo what Samit said earlier, which is there are so many different content types and content modalities. It could be 3D, it could be video, it could be anything. And I think it really comes down to the learner at that moment. And our job to do is to figure out what is the appropriate content modality at that specific moment for that specific use case. And so there isn't a one size fits all. It's kind of all of the above in that regard. And that's the challenge that we have as content developers, to figure out what is the right content market fit for that moment, for that learner.
True. I just want to add something to the same thing, but which also reflects to the last question asked by someone who, like, how can we make the online learning interesting, is the simple fact that even schools have started having an audiovisual room where they are showing content and making content interesting. Making the learning part interesting is the whole idea. Be it e-learning or be it in schools, the gamification of your textbooks, like, making it more immersive, is what will make the learning process entertaining or more interesting. And that's going to be the whole game in the near future, is what I feel.
All right, thanks Amit, thanks Eric. All right, I think we are at the close of this webinar. I would like to thank everyone for attending this today, and I hope it gave you some insights into the EdTech space that you were looking at. If there are any follow-up questions, any information you need from me or any of the panelists, please do write to us at any of these email addresses, or reach out to us on social media networks. We would be happy to engage with you. Thanks once again. Have a great rest of the day, evening, or good night, wherever you are. And we'll keep talking again in different forums. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.